Okay, that intro gets me. My God. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Read Down. I'm Jonathan Welch, and this is your weekly progressive political hot take by the Stonewall Democratic Club. On tonight's episode, we'll be reading down the collective falling down a never-ending flight of stairs that is the RNC. The wrap-up after the DNC, and, of course, we'll be opening the library to read the GOP for filth and giving you the rundown on the latest 2020 developments. As I said, I'm Jonathan Welch. I'm joined by my co-hosts, Ebony Murphy-Root and Alex Mohajer.
Oh, hey.
And we are joined this week by our special guest. She's just wonderful. I mean, I don't even know how to introduce her. And I also didn't ask. I failed. But Tess Rafferty.
Thank you guys for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you.
Or rather, to be in my house talking to you.
Yeah, and we decided we're all Hillary stands in the house.
Yes, we are. Had been Hillary, 1992.
Got my Do the Most Good up behind me, my letter from Hillary up there. I'm all set. I got all her mojo. Got my KAMALA t-shirt on.
Tess, you're like singing to my heart right now.
I'm wearing my vision board all over my body, I think.
You're working it.
Yeah. It's not too late. It's not too late, everyone.
That's fair. And you know what? I'm going to blow the cover and just say Tess has written Hillary Clinton fan fiction. So I think...
I know. I've been thinking about getting that back. I'm like, I should bring this out of retirement because
dust it off.
Yeah, dust it off because there were so many fun things in there about her saving democracy and, being in hiding on a small Italian island somewhere and all sorts of different
I mean, in the very least, I smell an animated series on Adult Swim. I think that if Mike Tyson can have mysteries, then Hillary Clinton can certainly,
she
right?
can,
yeah.
and
I had the Hillary Clinton mysteries. I had Hillary Clinton's Day Off, and then there was.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And then perhaps my favorite title, The Cunt Who Said Donald Trump Was Red in October. And crazy prophetic, as it turned out.
Children's books. I love that.
Yes. Yeah, it's so appropriate for the family. Well, listen, let's get into it. We have so much that we need to cover this week. I'm thrilled to be back and make my big calamari comeback so that we can talk about...
We missed
Thank you so much. So that we can talk about last week's convention, the roll call that we interrupted so that we could bring you our hour of talking, and what's going on this week. We're thrilled to save you from the RNC. But before we do, I want to get into some big Democratic energy, and nobody gives us big Democratic energy quite like California's own Representative Katie Porter. Love her. So Katie Porter from Orange County made some headlines because she grilled Louis DeJoy, who is, of course, America's least favorite postmaster general, at his hearing in the House yesterday. And unfortunately, we don't have a clip of that, but essentially what happened was Katie Porter went last, and she questioned DeJoy about his working knowledge of the functions of the Postal Service. And the only question that he got right was how much a stamp costs. So... DeJoy, who looks, I think, like a cross between a distant Trump family member and a lobotomized Costanza.
Evil Tim Conway.
I'm sorry?
He looks like evil Tim Conway.
Oh my God, he does.
Yeah.
He does. Or he looks like one of those Christmas villains, like who could be a snowman, like maybe evil. I don't know.
The entire Trump administration is like cartoon villains at this point. I mean, look at Stephen, what's his face?
Miller.
Oh,
Santa Monica.
Yes, I know.
Right.
They all look like evil cartoon Simpsons villains, and it's hard to take any of them seriously, and have to remind myself constantly that people actually listen to these people.
There were bad guys on the Wacky Racers.
Very carefully, people listen to them.
Rebecca Murphy is commenting, poor Tim Conway.
Yeah, I think Tim Conway deserves so much better in the afterlife. But what do we think about the questioning of DeJoy? I know that he has... I kind of walked back some of the changes that he said he was going to make, but he's also said that he's not going to correct any of the things that he's done.
He's something else. I was going to wear my Katie Porter whiteboard energy t-shirt, but it was a tad wrinkled. DeJoy is a charlatan, and he's a billionaire. So I don't understand these people who keep working when they're already wealthy. What's in it for them besides cravenness and evil power? It's very bizarre. I don't get it.
Yeah, if you have enough money to buy yourself anything, do you need more?
It's strange.
Or just why would you want to like go work at, go work in government? I don't know. Like, I think what's like crazy unabashed, right? Like, and where I quite honestly wanted to see the questioning go was like, he's like, I can't think of any reason why I'd have to drop out. And I wanted to be like, well, what if you murdered somebody? Should you still be our post office general? Like, what then? And then he's like, at least none that you brought up here. And when he was just like refusing to do anything, I was like, there's nothing left to lose for these guys. It's like really like we have done nothing. Our Constitution enables us to do nothing to stop any of this. They ignore what constitutional powers we have. And so it's like, yeah, they're just going to, basically tell you they're going to do evil. And there's nothing, like, what are you going to do about it, Katie Porter? And to some extent, like, he's right.
Well,
yeah,
I think it's really interesting to watch Katie Porter do her thing because she is so good at what she does. And she's done this so many times in these House committee hearings where she just humiliates the person that's up testifying. I mean, I think Mr. Diamond, he was up, I don't forget what bank he's with, but he was up last year.
Bank of America.
Yes. Yeah. And she just humiliated him so publicly. I mean, I think he even recognizes and talks about how he was so humiliated. And I think having that kind of ability to really highlight the dishonesty and the discrepancies in what they're saying, it's a skill. And I think Katie Porter is one of the valued new freshman members of Congress and California 45.
She comes prepared. She comes ready to go. She does the work. She was, instructed by Elizabeth Warren at Harvard Law, and she just makes clear that these guys show up with utter incompetence and mediocrity, and the juxtaposition of the two is so on display. Like, she's so obviously the best of America, had to show up and prepare for her job, and then these guys just roll out of bed and, radiate in knowing nothing. It's very disgusting.
Ebony,
and this is a good...
I think that Katie Porter even tweeted, I hope Louis DeJoy is coming prepared tomorrow.
Right.
And after the hearing, she tweeted, spoiler alert, he didn't.
This is a good reminder that we really need to work hard to defend Katie Porter's seat in very volatile Orange County. It's very possible that
send money. Fundraisers for everybody.
Absolutely. Send money for Katie Porter. She's doing a fantastic job. But while we're talking about cartoon villains, guys, Kellyanne Conway has announced that she is leaving the White House. This comes after some controversy with her family. Her daughter, Claudia, of course, has been phenomenal on Twitter, and she's only 15, and she announced that she is emancipating herself from her parents. So not only is Kellyanne leaving the White House, but her husband, George, is leaving the Lincoln Project. I can't imagine what it's like to eat breakfast in that house. What do we think?
Money to be a fly on that wall, let me tell you. Good riddance. I think Kellyanne Conway is a propaganda minister. And I think her, she says she's going to go tend to family matters. Obviously, her husband has been speaking out against the Trump administration since 2018. And that's awkward. He was a member of the Lincoln Project, although he announced that he is also leaving the Lincoln Project to tend to family matters. And of course, this coincides with Claudia Conway posting tweets about how she's suffered years of, quote, childhood trauma and abuse at the hands of her parents. I mean, and she wants to emancipate. So yeah, I think that's pretty bad news. She tweeting about how she's devastated about her mom's role in the upcoming RNC, the RNC this week. So, good riddance.
I mean, and I mean this honestly, it's like, if your parents are willing to excuse, people accused of rape and guys who talk like that about women. I mean, just, the grab them by the pussy tape on its face. Like, if you discount the 32, 34 rape charges, wherever we are at that point, the rape accusations, it's like, if your parents are willing to just like overlook that for a buck, then, chances are they probably don't care who they let around you, and they don't believe you if you come to them and tell them that like this guy's abusing you. It's they're not exactly sympathetic ears, so they're probably not safe parents. I always say that to people who have relatives who are Republicans: don't let them around your kids, because they're not going to look out for their safety, and they're not going to be a safe place if the child needs to confess that someone's treating them, abusing them.
But isn't like QAnon about the children?
Oh my
Sorry,
God.
I couldn't. They
had a rally in Hollywood last weekend. They were down there marching around looking for the kids.
Yeah,
I know that QAnon has been listed as a domestic terrorist group by all the intelligence agencies. So if you're touting QAnon in your social media, you are an idiot. Stop it now. They are harming America, and it's time to stop. It's time to combat this false, phony propaganda with facts and reality. So when you see QAnon, just respond to it. Hashtag QAnon be crazy. Respond to that messaging if you can.
Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, that's a very good hashtag. Right. I'm going to just issue the same warning that Julia Sugarbaker once did, which is you will end up in prison. To QAnon. Getting dragged to hell by her teenage daughter undoubtedly shocked Kellyanne out of haze and delusion with lies. Much healing. Claudia Conway from Tiffany Day. We agree. I think
I thought there with Claudia Conway. She's clearly suffering. So
absolutely.
Imagine that, 15 and going into 10th grade. I wish her well. And she asked AOC to adopt her on Twitter.
And to give her a job as an intern, which I was like, AOC, make this happen. Nothing would piss off Kellyanne Conway more. Yeah.
But also Claudia, if you follow her on Twitter, I mean, the girl at 15 years old is just like such a powerhouse, and the things that she says are like more put together than people 2 or 3 times her age. So there's definitely, a lot of suffering going on in her life, but I think she has a bright future, and I really hope that that what comes out of this is the attention that she needs in order to make things better.
We shall see.
Yes.
Is done. I mean, honestly, like, I think the best thing she can do is like, get into a good school and get the hell away from those parents, because like having horrible, I mean, I include George Conway, because let's not pretend like he hasn't been complicit. Having horrible people like that at home can't be good for you either. Like, what's Kellyanne Conway really going to do to repair the relationship at this point? Like, there's nothing she can do. The damage is done. It's just like, girl, if you're listening, get into a good college and never go home again.
Well, also,
exactly.
Look at what Kellyanne Conway has said about Trump in the past. It's like all these noted Republicans that are now all pro-Trump have said vicious things about Donald Trump. And now, for some reason, I don't know what the Russians have on these people, but it's really wild how Rand Paul, Ted Cruz, Kellyanne Conway, all of them, they have called him a fraud, a liar, a bigot, a race-baiting xenophobe, and relentlessly attacked him when the 2016 Republican primary was going on. And now all of a sudden, they're huge supporters. So I'm also in slow motion. So I
don't know what's happening.
QAnon.
No, it's QAnon.
Your drugs it's getting quicker than you thought. Like,
I know I've been thinking a lot about hallucinogenics lately. So, I just want to also say that Pat left a comment about flat earthers and QAnon supporters being a perfect circle. And I was thinking about flat earthers the other day, like, where did they go? And I realized that this is pretty much where that's where they've gone.
From the conservative dystopia of South Carolina. So hi, Pat.
Yeah. So I also
Jamie Harrison though. So there's hope.
Jamie Harrison.
Pat, I hope you're listening. Jamie Harrison, what are you doing to help Jamie Harrison, and what can we do to support you? Let us know.
I have to say I know Pat, and he is doing everything he can to get Jamie Harrison elected. So Pat. Is his community in Charleston, South Carolina. Is very liberal in that little pocket. So we're hoping for big things down there.
Yeah.
Speaking of the long list of Republicans that Alex was mentioning that clearly will never disown the Trump administration. There is a flip side to that. Jeff Flake and a long list of former congressional Republicans came out on day one of the Republican National Convention to say that they are voting, not just not voting for Donald Trump, which is something that, you know, a lot of these organizations are putting out there, but actually endorsing and voting for and supporting Joe Biden. Jeff Flake, I'm just going to open up the library for him, for all of us to talk about him for a moment. Go to town.
Another rich guy who could have denounced Trump early on. So what was in it for him? He's smart enough. He's well-rounded enough. He's exposed enough. He knew that Trump was no good. So I don't understand. Like, it's great that he's doing this now and supporting Biden, but where was he in 2016? I don't get it. It's a little late for me, Jeff Flake.
Where was he during Kavanaugh? Like, Jeff Flake's mouth loves to write checks that his votes never cash.
Arizona.
Norman Susan Collins. It's like, I mean, now he's slightly better than Collins because now he's actually saying he's voting for Biden, but it took long enough.
Susan Collins, I remember during the Kavanaugh hearings when people were begging Susan Collins to be a hero, and I was begging her, thinking, please. And Jeff Flake did speak out against the Trump administration when he was still in office, but it was like lip service. He never actually did anything meaningful to support it.
If you don't vote in connection with that, it doesn't matter. We can't get anywhere. There's no way you can say whatever, but if even Romney had one yay and one nay, thanks, that didn't help, the impeachment. It's like, let's be honest, everything comes down right now to votes in the Senate and nothing more or less for this country.
Exactly. So his
Jeff
endorsement
Flake,
reads check shit.
Rebecca Murphy says Jeff Flake said the right words for a while, but his action never followed his words. So his endorsement means jack shit because he might still pull that lever for Trump in November. Well, I think he's said he's going to vote for Joe Biden, but
I think it does mean something when people actually come out and say that they're going to vote for the person opposite the party. I want to believe that, of course, they're not going to pull the lever because they just lost all clout within their own party. Not that Jeff Flake had much to begin with. I mean, he pretty much knew that he could not, under any circumstances, win that seat back. And lo and behold, Kirsten Sinema won it away from Martha McSally, who ended up in the Senate anyway, whatever. But he knew he couldn't survive in his party. So, he did have quite a bit to lose, it turns out. I'm not defending him, but I think that for him to come out now, along with that long list, it was over 20 people who have served in Congress, including 3 senators. And, they're all standing up for Biden. And as we saw at the convention last week, which we're going to get into in a moment, there are a lot of Republican leaders, former Republican leaders, who are now riding with Biden. So.
But not W.
Not
W
yet.
went to Maine last weekend to support Susan Collins. So
that's right, he was. He loves Susan Collins.
That was that New England rich person connection.
Well, I think the Bushes, have they said whether they're going to vote for Trump, though? I feel like if they're Republican, we can't blame them down ticket. But what I'm really concerned about is, like, are you going to help us get this loser out of the White House? I mean, Susan Collins is a shitbag and she needs to go. But I can't be surprised that the Bushes... Whoa, Devin's dog.
Well, I mean, the Bush women basically came out and supported Hillary 4 years ago.
The daughters or Laura too?
Daughters, Barbara, and I think Laura. Like, I thought
Laura,
it was an interview.
Actually, George H.W. also did, but they kind of backpedaled that. I think it was Kathleen Kennedy Townsend or Christine Todd Whitman. I always get them confused. One's a Democrat, one's a Republican, but one of the two. I'm sorry.
Oh no, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying one of the two visited George H.W. Bush and said the president has told me that he's voting for Hillary Clinton, and they were like, we didn't want that to be public, but so he did. So it can happen. It can definitely.
I really thought Laura Bush was a Republican. I read that Curtis Sinfeld Romanaclef, and I always got the feeling that Laura was a secret Democrat. She's a librarian, so I always thought she pulled the lever for Hillary. That's my guess on Laura Welch Bush.
Laura Welch, who may or may not be related to me.
Ooh, I hadn't thought about that.
I know. I think about it often, and I haven't made the connection on Ancestry.com yet, but listen, could be there.
Make it happen. I always kind of liked her. She didn't get married till she was 35. She's working in the library down south. I just, that's like an alternative life I can imagine myself living.
Well, what we want to do now is jump into, getting away from talking about Jeff Flake and others and the Bushes. We want to talk about the celebration that was last week's DNC, the first all virtual convention ever held in American history. And the Democrats, I think, pulled it off as flawlessly as you possibly could. I want to talk about some of our favorite moments and some of the things that happened. But of course, it was a place for us to get to know Kamala Harris, for the country to get to know Kamala Harris. Of course, we in California know her quite well, but the country is getting introduced to her as a vice presidential candidate. And there was such a wonderful speech that she delivered in which she talked about her background, she talked about her family and her mother, and we have a clip.
Family is the friends I turn to when my mother, the most important person in my life, passed away from cancer. And even as she taught us to keep our family at the center of our world, she also pushed us to see a world beyond ourselves. She taught us to be conscious and compassionate about the struggles of all people, to believe public service is a noble cause, and the fight for justice is a shared responsibility. That led me to become a lawyer, a district attorney, attorney general, and a United States senator. And at every step of the way, I've been guided by the words I spoke from the first time I stood in a courtroom. Kamala Harris, for the people. I have fought for children and survivors of sexual assault. I fought against transnational criminal organizations. I took on the biggest banks and helped take down one of the biggest for-profit colleges. I know a predator when I see one.
Guys.
That was a great line.
Yeah.
That was, nailed it.
Yeah. It was, I have to say, going through her entire speech, which was about 19 minutes long, comparatively, other candidates, and Joe Biden's speech was 24 minutes long, shorter than in other conventions because, of course, they don't have a crowd to play off of. But in going through the entire speech, it was hard to pick just 1 minute that we could feed her. I mean, I think it was phenomenal.
I liked the intro with the stepdaughter and her sister and the niece, so Mina and Ella and Maya. That was beautiful. That was like, this is our multicultural, all-American family. It was lovely. That worked for me.
I know, I loved it. And our friend Ryan Bash says Mamala, and that's her. I think the love that her stepdaughter has, for her, that like she brings this whole family together. I cried the whole time. So that's why I wasn't here last week. I was just crying. So,
I thought they were going to get Doug's ex-wife up there. I hear that she likes Kamala as well, and I thought maybe they'll do that. That would be modern.
I was waiting for that too, Ebony. Like Kirsten, I thought, Kirsten, because they've talked about it. And if you read Kamala's book, she talks about how they're friends and how they do things together. So
they are. I love it.
I thought her beginning was exceptionally strong. I love the historical context that she put it in, right out of, regarding the 19th Amendment. I love that she also didn't pull any punches when she talked about the fact that the 19th Amendment only included white women, only gave white women the right to vote. And she kind of laid out like almost immediately that, the structural racism in our country that needs to be addressed, and then kind of wrapped it up with, talked about her influences, right? Like all the amazing like civil rights leaders. She mentioned Shirley Chisholm. She gave a nod to both Barack and Hillary for saying that she wouldn't be there without these trailblazers, which I thought was, really as one of the reasons I love Kamala is because she doesn't play that politics of not mentioning Hillary. And then she talked about her mom. Like, here's someone you don't know. Here's my mom, who, when she gave birth to me, never could have imagined that I'd be up here. And then she says, saying, I accept this nomination. And at that point, I just cried. Like when she said those words out loud, I thought it was an incredibly powerful moment.
Yeah, the trailblazers that she talked about, including Mary McLeod Bethune, when she said her name, I screamed because I love any story about her. She was an advisor to Eleanor and Franklin Roosevelt in the 30s, and she was an educator, and she was an amazing Black woman, and like all of these people that she touched on. But talking about her mom as someone who lost their mom as well, it was just like, it really gets you. And just knowing that, of course, she has taken her family traditions and she's kind of pulled her family together and has been kind of that thread for everybody, is just a special look at who she is as an individual. And I think it's a special look at who she is also as a leader, because it takes very special people to bring everybody together and unite everyone, which is why I think she's probably the best possible choice for vice president.
I mean, she certainly reinvigorated the race. As soon as Joe Biden announced her, I think they had a record fundraising haul. The DNC announced that they raised more money in August than any month since in a decade. And August isn't even over yet. So it's a pretty amazing effect that she's had on the race. I believe she's really reinvigorated it. Her speech was beautiful and brilliant. And I love that she pays deference to the shoulders that she stands on. I'm a big justice person. And when people think it's politically expedient to maybe omit the reference to Hillary Clinton, I always get cringe, and her willingness to do that is so appreciated, because look, people were big Hillary fans. She won 66 million votes. All of us are experiencing the collective trauma of 2016. And I was really happy, not to always make it about Hillary again, but I was just really happy about that. And Kamala Harris she's gonna make history, and I'm just so proud of her.
But I feel like whether it's Hillary or another trailblazer, we don't make it about them enough, and we don't recognize what they did, right? Like, and we don't, and I find this to be the problem with a lot of Democratic women right now, I think, where they don't recognize the shoulders they stand on. They think they just got there on their own. And I find that really disrespectful to the people who paved the way for them to get there. I mean, it's never easy, but it gets easier for all of us, whether for whatever group is fighting to get ahead and get a seat at the table that didn't have one before. But, it was harder for the people who came before us and did it anyway and managed to succeed. So I like that Kamala has that reverence for all of them.
I think that might be generational. I know a lot of people think younger women don't have the deference, but I also think they just don't have the historical history. I remember 1992. I was 10 years old, but if you're 10 years younger than me, then you weren't around. You don't remember Headband Hillary. You don't remember the hits that she took. You don't remember Geraldine Ferraro. You don't have any idea. You think you just arrived, free with the right to vote and the right to birth control and the right to say whatever you want. And so, I think we need to inform young women.
Well, I think that is true, but like I also was born after the Beatles broke up, and I still know all their songs, and I didn't even have Google growing up, So there was
What's the Beatles? Just kidding.
Don't
kidding.
try to act like you're.
Just kidding.
We're 21. Okay.
I am a millennial.
So I do think it's generational, but I also think like there's a lack of curiosity and respect for these things. And to be fair, I find it from Elizabeth Warren too. So
I've heard that. Yeah. People think, that Lizzie W. and they're so similar. So it's bizarre to me that there's this tension there.
Lizzie Dubs.
Yeah. I don't get that. I wonder what that's about. It's not a class issue. I do wonder.
I do too.
Honestly, I think it's Liz's Republican background. I feel like she's got a little bit of a mentality of I pulled myself up by my bootstraps and didn't get here with anyone else's help. And I feel like that's very Republican 20 years ago, right? Or 30 years ago. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I just feel like there's a lack of, other than her Aunt B, I never hear her thank another woman for helping her along the way.
Well, Aunt B, but Aunt B,
we love Aunt B
all the way over there and stayed there for 16 years.
That's right. But what I'll say about that, Tess, I want to mention though, because you said that's very like a Republican 20, 30 years ago. Always remember too that 25, 30 years ago, Republicans made it their day-to-day business to just try to destroy Hillary Clinton at no cost. And that's really kind of where it started. So even if you no longer subscribe to that party, you had that information kind of in your ear all the time at that point in time. So I would love to just get a nice counseling session together for the two of them, because they're two women who I love and admire so much. And I just want them to like work it out. But you know what? Not everybody's going to get along. I do want to talk about Hillary, though, because Hillary Clinton was one of the people who gave, we had Kamala's speech was overwhelmingly positive and hopeful and kind of showed her vision for the future, as well as introducing herself to the American public. But we had speeches during the convention before we talk about Joe Biden's speech. That struck a very different tone, obviously, about trying to save our democracy. Those speeches came from Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders, Barack Obama, Michelle Obama, among others. I know that Elizabeth Warren touched on that a little bit, but hers was a little bit of, more of a hopeful message as well. What do we think about any of those speeches or any other moments that maybe we missed that stood out and really kind of set this convention apart?
Well, I went into that evening really looking forward to Hillary Clinton, because obviously we supported her in 2016, and I want to hear from her. I want to hear what she has to say. And like I have said throughout the entire Democratic primary, I said, if she says jump, I will jump, because my heart was with her. I still feel it's unjust, and all of her supporters, and there were a lot of us, we felt the same way. So I was really looking forward to her speech. I got like really emotional because I'm like, we shouldn't even be here. This should be her. This should be the DNC to support this woman's reelection. And it chapped my ass all over again. And it was upsetting, but I thought she did a good job of saying a few things. One was, you can still win 3 million more votes and lose. Trust me, take it from me. And that was very important. It was telling people, you can't, she even said, no, if this can't be a shoulda, woulda, coulda election this time. Get out there and vote.
Her look had like a multitude in it. It was the realest thing I think I saw all four nights, when she just went, like, you could see, like, I'm exaggerating. It just, the tone of it to me was like, I can't believe I'm fucking here in my house. I can't leave, and I'm not up for re-election. And look, like everything she's had to endure, all the things, and just like,
yeah, Tess.
I would say this again for the cheap seats.
Tess, I would have been comfortable if she gave 1 5-second speech and it was just, I fucking told you.
Yep.
And then she just pounds a Guinness, and smashes the glass against the wall.
Fuck it up this time, America.
You got him. Yeah.
It's true though. But what she was talking about, plus what Michelle Obama was talking about, was that the difference in terms of the 3 million votes, when you actually look at the votes that put Donald Trump in the White House, it came down to 2 votes per precinct. So when we talk about that vote, people who are concerned that their votes may not matter, if you really want to think about how that election could have been different if everybody in every one of those precincts just reached out to 2 more people, then it could have changed.
The thing we're not talking about, and I heard a lot of urging to get people out and concern about the post office and, sort of a little bit of a blanket voter suppression. But what we're not talking about is that if every Black and brown vote had counted, right, we wouldn't be here. And no one is really, for 4 years, no one in government, I mean, a little bit like Amy Klobuchar touches on it, and because she's been really pushing the free and fair elections thing and stuff, and a little bit of a blanket. Oh, I'm sorry. I just heard I'm sorry. There was a glitch. Nobody's really talking about the fact that, like, we're losing because of voter suppression. We're losing because
Stacey Abrams, she's talking about it.
Yes. National government, federal government, people who should have been sounding the alarm for 4 years. And they're like, how do we reach the white people who didn't vote for Trump? And it's like, just make sure every Black and brown vote counted in this country, we would have won. We did not count 80,000 votes in Detroit, and she lost Michigan by 11,000.
Yeah.
And I find that really just disheartening from our leaders. Like, what? It's like they've already decided, well, we don't control the government, so there's nothing we can do about it right now.
Wow. Let's make it clear right now to people that in the 2016 election, 3 million provisional ballots were cast, validly, legally cast, that were not counted because a voter cross-check system run by Republican secretaries of state across the country purged millions of voters from the voter rolls. They were purging people with the same first and last name with different middle initials and different birthdays, saying that they had now moved out of state. And what happened on election day is those primarily people of color, because guess who has the most common last names in America? Brown, Smith, Lee, Hernandez,
Murphy.
Murphy. They showed up on election day and their names were not on the voter rolls. And so they filled out provisional ballots that are not actual ballots. And that's why the exit polls in 2016 showed that Hillary Clinton won states like Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Florida, and North Carolina, because those voters were there voting and leaving and telling the exit pollsters that they had voted for Hillary Clinton. And there's a reason that she won 3 million more votes, and probably more, but those votes were not cast. So register to vote, iwillvote.com. Make sure you are still registered to vote. Do it right now. Do it early. Request your absentee ballot early. Get it in the mail by October 20th latest, but do it today if you can, and let them give you no excuse, no reason. Voting is the cornerstone of American democracy. God damn it. So literally, it fucking infuriates me. Get registered, and make sure you're registered now.
And what I'll say too is make sure you have a plan A and a plan B. So if you're going to vote by mail, which a lot of us are, make sure that you also look into what happens if you don't receive your ballot on time, or if you decide that you want to go vote in person and vote early. So the best thing to do is to make sure that you have multiple avenues to make sure that you're going to vote. And then if you can track your vote, track it, because most states have that ability. So we can get in there and actually do that.
Can I get a show of hands, just everyone in this room, in this broadcast, who here will crawl through broken glass, brimstone, and fire to get to an actual poll location on election day with a mask on if they have to?
Yes. I'm going to vote early. And on election day, I will go to polling locations and make sure if there are lines that people have water, that they are comfortable, that they are doing everything that they need to do to stay in that line.
Ruth Lefebvre, that's pack dinner and breakfast too.
That's right.
Michelle Obama, who I think for me had the best speech of the whole 4 nights, hands down. I mean, she touched on this somewhat, like, bring lunch, bring dinner, bring breakfast if you have to. And I think we saw some of that on Super Tuesday, the people in Texas who had stood online for 7 hours to vote. And, so there is a little bit of it, but it is really like, what happens when they close your polling place, when they won't take your thing, when they, when they're telling you you arrived too late, even though you arrived on time. There's just so many dirty tactics they're taking right now. And that's before we get into all the illegal actual tampering stuff they're doing, just like in terms of just like closing polling locations, telling people that they need a provisional ballot because suddenly they're not on the the rosters and everything, the long lines that are deterrents for most people.
I waited for 2 hours to vote in the primary. I got there at 7. I didn't vote until almost 9:15. So I just, stayed there. But that was, that never happened before.
Wow.
Yeah.
You live in Los Angeles. Imagine rural voters in swing states where they're closing polling locations because there are people of color that live there. Sure.
Well, that's Long Beach. We had like 3 or 4 central places, and people were looking around like, what is this? So we all stayed.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that was the other thing about LA County is they changed to voting centers. And I think that was such a big shift in our voting culture, in the primary season that people weren't necessarily used to it. Now we know that you can go to any vote center in LA County and you can do it early. So if you do plan to vote in person, then definitely do that. Also, Dodger Stadium is going to be a polling place. So if you want to have a little baseball in your life because we aren't able to go watch games, go vote there. I want to move on because we have so much to cover in just, a little bit of time. Joe Biden's speech, to end the DNC on a more positive note. Joe Biden gave what a lot of people are calling the speech of a lifetime. We have a clip and I want to.
The Irish poet Seamus Heaney once wrote, "History says, don't hope on this side of the grave, but then, once in a lifetime, the longed-for tidal wave of justice can rise up and hope and history rhyme. This is our moment to make hope and history rhyme. With passion and purpose, let us begin, you and I together, one nation, under God, united in our love for America, united in our love for each other. For love is more powerful than hate. Hope is more powerful than fear. And light is more powerful than dark. This is our moment. This is our mission. May history be able to say that the end of this chapter of American darkness began here tonight as love and hope and light join in the battle for the soul of the nation. And this is a battle we will win, and we'll do it together. I promise you.
I mean, phenomenal. Nothing gets me harder than Irish poetry.
Oh, I didn't misunderstood you.
And then Ella Baker, he kicked it off with Ella Baker, and then the references. That was great. Yeah. Worked for me. Warmed my little English teacher heart.
That's right.
Yeah. Look, I was not a Joe Biden stan. I didn't vote for him in the primary. I think he was close to maybe second to last on my list of choices. And I think there was a lot of buildup to this because, the Republican Party has been basically painting him out as incoherent and sleepy and unable to string together sentences. And he did what he needed to do. He was convincing, eloquent, empathetic, warm, commanding. He was touching on all the right notes. It was unifying, and it was basically saying, enough of this darkness. We can do better than this. I will be a Democratic nominee, but a president for all of you. And man, can I tell you, he blew me out of the water. And that's just not just because I'm voting Democrat. I really was like on bated breath, like, just don't fuck this up, Joe. And I was like, by the end, I was in tears because I finally felt like, this is like, we have a leader again. Someone that cares about us. And man, I got to tell you, it was a relief to think that maybe we could have, I felt hope again for the first time in a very, very long time. So
we've been spoiled for a little bit because we expect that it's always going to be an Obama moment, right? And you're not always going to fall in love. You know what I mean? It's not always going to be the person you wanted to vote for in the beginning who wins. But I thought he gave a great speech. I can get behind him, and we'll do what we have to do. It was a good moment for me.
I think what's really remarkable is, it's it was an A+ performance of, I mean, a speech that at times, frankly, was, you know, a little bit of a B or B+ to me. But I give him credit. I give him so much credit for that. And I was talking to someone on Facebook who's like, no, that was the real deal. That was a performance. And I was like, no, you don't understand. Like, you don't understand how hard it is to read a teleprompter. You know, the guy's got to stutter, how hard it is to modulate, like when you get angry, when you get, you know, soft, like when, you know, like how to hit the right notes throughout, which I think he did phenomenally. Like he got angry when we wanted him to get angry, and he got compassionate and took it down when he was talking to people who've lost someone. And he was, you know, and able to most of the time, like just be that calm voice and make his case and say like, you know, I'm going to always protect you. And I have a plan, like, you know, which were actual things he said, you know, and so I think that like it was a really, like, we don't give people enough credit to really know, like they're not, these people aren't performers. I mean, just something they have to learn, but you know, they didn't go to Shakespeare and Company. You know,
Tess, that speech would have been hokey out of anyone else's mouth, but it wasn't hokey out of his because he believed what he was saying. So I think that's like the difference. I think you're right. Maybe it was a B+ speech and it was a little, from anyone else, it might have been a little trite, but from him, because he believes it, I believed it. And that's kind of what I'm looking for from him, is to connect to us and tell us it's going to be okay because we need it.
How many people went back and watched Obama giving him the medal from 2017?
Oh my God.
Several times. And I don't get why, if he was good enough for Obama for 8 years, why isn't he good enough for the rest of us? I don't get it. I mean, Obama clearly respects the man and looks up to him. And so what seems to be the disconnect there between sort of the voting populace who loves Obama, but not Joe? What's that about?
Well, I think that polling is showing that he actually is getting that support. He's over 50% in the polls. Not that polls are everything, but they are an indicator of kind of where we are and where we have to make up some ground. And so he's doing better in polling than Obama was in 2008 and 2012. So that's a very interesting metric. But what you're seeing out there, Ebony, and I think like we're all seeing that, is that we have friends and we have people who are like, ugh, about Joe Biden. And, you know, we're understanding that he's the right choice for us for right now. And he was obviously the right choice, like you said, for Barack Obama. But, you know, if you asked me back in March, I never would have thought, or February or March, I never would have thought that he'd be the right choice for the moment. But the moment has changed.
We're talking a lot about Obama, and I got to say, Obama to me ended up being the highlight. I don't think people understand how unusual it is for a former president, the directly preceding president, he just left off, the most former president, to get on national television and announce a four-alarm fire. 4-alarm fire. I'm Persian. You know, and to basically declare a state of national emergency on national television is what he did. And it was much darker than we're used to from him, which made me pay attention, because this is the hope and change guy. And he's right here telling you, I'm not going to bullshit you. This is, he said, don't let them take your democracy. Don't let them take your power. Wow.
Yeah.
That is such stark and really just alarming language from a former president, the hope and change president. So I thought he was actually the highlight for me.
And I'll agree with you there, because that was such a moment. But if we're going to switch gears, we should switch gears for a second and talk about what's happening right now and what we here at the Read Down are saving you, our viewing public, from this evening, which is the RNC. Because the messaging from the Republican convention, first of all, the Republican convention happened all in one day, guys. All of the procedural, everything that happens during a convention happened on Monday before it hit prime time. And so what we're seeing now is just a 4-day rolling Trump rally on primetime television. It started last night. It was very dark. And of course, the messaging was that Democrats are this is like the gaslighting that they do, right? Like the Democrats are the ones who are going to take everything away from you. Like, we're going to come lock you in your homes and then move MS-13 in next door, which is an actual thing that someone said during their speech. Alex, I know you've prepared some clips for us. I'm going to let you kind of take the wheel on this segment because you know where we're going.
Well, Kate will help too. Our beautiful stage manager, Kate. Thank you, Kate. So first, let's play the clip of Kimberly Guilfoyle, who is Donald Trump Jr.'s girlfriend, and her deranged speech. And then we're going to play some of the online reactions to it. So here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, leaders and fighters for freedom and liberty and the American dream, the best is yet to come.
You guys, cocaine's a hell of a drug, you know what I mean?
Right. And so that's like that people are speculating like that's just like a Korean propaganda video, and she's out of her mind. And I'll bring this so let's show what the social media reaction has been to this speech, which is brilliant.
Ladies and gentlemen, the best is yet to come.
Call the police. We need to call the police.
Ladies and gentlemen, leaders and fighters of the American dream, the best is yet to come!
Ladies and gentlemen, leaders and fighters for freedom and liberty and the American dream, 박명성 3호 2호기 위성 발사 성공. They want to steal your liberty, your freedom. They want to control what you see and think and believe so that they can control how you live. Ladies and gentlemen, leaders and fighters for freedom and liberty and the American dream, the best is yet to come.
I was not prepared for the North Korean news anchor portion.
Spoiler alert, that last one I made myself.
Very good.
It felt like I needed to have a Housewives reference. So Kimberly Guilfoyle was deranged. Don Jr. was deranged. And cocaine was trending on Twitter yesterday because they were so hopped up. And I don't know if they were doing blow. I know that Donald Trump Jr. has never done a drug and never had a drink. But these two were loaded. They were out of control. So
glassy eyes. No modulation.
And Don Jr. had like liquid running from his eyes, and he was just kind of like out of it. I can't imagine, first of all, that it's easy to deliver a speech to an empty room, but a bunch of Democrats did it last week and didn't need cocaine. So, you know, not even
Pat Martin says night two.
Used, you know, like if they needed it, it wasn't so obvious.
Pat Martin says night two, we ran out of cocaine.
Yes. But Tess, to your point, I think because so much of Hollywood was behind the Democratic National Convention, and like there's so much cocaine in Hollywood. Listen, if we needed it, we know how to cover it up too, but we didn't. We were good. Our people were fine.
Look, we know how to. I always feel like whenever I watch, I'm like, I know how to hold my alcohol at least. Yeah, that wouldn't have. I know how to not get sloppy.
Yeah,
not in front of the camera anyway.
So it seems as though the RNC is going to strike this very, very dark tone. And so for anybody who's in the middle, I mean, just go back and watch some of the DNC, watch some of the videos and the speeches. I think that the two conventions are just, they couldn't be any more different. And we could go on longer. I don't want to give the RNC any more time on our show. And we're also running out of time. So we are going to get to our final segment called The Library. The library is open. And what we're going to do is go around and give everybody a moment just to read whomever they want, to go on a rant if they wish. I would like to start with my co-host, Ebony Murphy-Root. Are you ready?
I'm ready. So the library is open, and I would like to read the Black Republican trio of Herschel Walker and the senator from Georgia. I think his name was Vernon Jones, and then Senator Tim Scott. I don't understand why the role of Black Republicans is only to scold Black folks. I feel like if you're a Black Republican, you should be a Republican for reasons of the economy, or you're really into the military. But it really seems like their only role is to repeat that Donald Trump is not a racist, and also that they are the only Black folks in America whose family worked hard and did better in a couple of generations. Like, all of our families did that. You know, my great-grandparents picked cotton, and look at me with my master's degree living in Long Beach. Like, they're not the only ones who have an American dream story. So I feel like they need to broaden their outreach, not just to the Black folks who are never going to vote Republican, but to recruit more to the people that they really could bring in. And it's not ever going to be me. So their scolding of me is useless. They need to figure out another role in the party than scolding Black Democrats and using plantation similes and metaphors. That's my read.
It's really interesting, Ebony, that you talked about Vernon Jones, because he's a Democrat, right? So how strange. So he says, right? Like, why are you there? It's a very, very strange vibe. And I think that really stood out, especially on night one, to kind of try to placate people. It was a strange part of the program. So I'm glad that you brought that up. Yeah. Tess.
Yes.
What rant would you like to go on?
I think I'd like to read undecideds and third-party voters, because like if you're undecided, you're not really undecided. You just don't want to tell everyone you're an evil racist. like whatever it is, whether you're craven and you're rich and you're getting a tax cut out of all of this, or like whether or not you really just don't think that the rest of us have rights, I think that it's like, let's be honest, it's go time. If you don't know by now which side of history you want to fall on, then you're just not a good person. Like that's how I feel. Like, if you're like, no, my third party vote is sacred. It's like, you're clearly putting your own conscience or whatever, and frankly, stupidity, by saying that they're all the same, because they're clearly not at this point. Like, when we have Democratic presidents, we can genuinely leave the house, usually speaking, right? So it's like, I think that, like, if you're basically putting whatever little hissy fit tantrum you want to throw that you think is going to make a difference above, like, people whose relatives are going to get banned from this country, or, people who are afraid to go out because their kids are going to get shot in front of them, or people who, are going to get, like, banned from the military, or not allowed to adopt kids any longer, or won't be able to get the health care we need. So it's like, you're coming at it from a place of privilege, and you're saying that, like, your feelings are more important than the rights and, lives, quite honestly, that we're all going to lose if we can't get this guy out of the White House. So that's who I would like to talk about.
I love that. And I also kind of feel like right now, the Democrats, we are a big tent party. And so, if you're somewhat tempted to vote third party, first of all, don't. Secondly, come join us, be part of our conversation, and help work on things that we can actually get done. One of two people can become president.
It's really like, what you're saying is you don't care about those kids in cages who'll never see their parents again, who are just dying on our watch and being left to live in just inhumane conditions. Like, you're saying, like, yeah, but there's something I just don't like about Joe, and that's more important than those kids, like, ever having a chance at a normal life.
Agreed. It lights me on fire too. Alex, I'm going to kick it over to you.
Yeah, this week I'd like to read an American media system that is not learning its lesson from 2016. And in 2016, the problem is that it got hard at work at creating these counterbalancing media narratives and putting these candidates in binary boxes. So, like, the whole world has to be Republican or Democrat, good or evil, black or white. And so in doing that, they made the comparison between Trump and Hillary Clinton, what should be a comparison between Pepsi and sewer water. a comparison between Pepsi and Coke, and that's not what it is. And they're doing the same thing now. The media, CNN, all these major media outlets posted tweets about the deranged performances of Donald Trump Jr. and Kimberly Guilfoyle on their Twitter pages, and in their headlines, Kimberly Guilfoyle delivers impassioned speech at the RNC. Are you fucking kidding me? When are we going to stand up and say that what is happening in the Republican Party is insane, fascistic, authoritarian? They have totally abandoned any guise of trying to have a party platform. They passed a resolution saying they're not going to have a party platform. The Republican Party is running on nothing. They're just running on Trump, and his entire family is speaking on his behalf and nobody else. And the messaging coming out of this convention is that the Democrats are evil and they're going to take your liberty away, and screaming like fucking Looney Tunes, frothing at the mouth. And the American media system is going to tweet, Kimberly Guilfoyle gave an impassioned speech. Give me a fucking break. It is not a lack of journalistic integrity to post that Kimberly Guilfoyle and Don Jr. gave deranged psychotic performances that were propaganda, that were totally void of any truth or reality, and that should get shut down. So America, media, the American media is just as liberal as the conservative conglomerates that own them. And that is a fact. And that's my read this week.
I agree. And I want to talk about two quick things. One is a positive thing that I'd like to end on. But before I do, we ran out of time before we were able to talk about Jacob Blake, who was shot 7 times and tasered by Kenosha, Wisconsin police because he was breaking up a fight, and he called them in order to get their help in that. It's terrible for us to see this happen time and time again, that the police can be so hubristic to do what they're doing during a time when Black Lives Matter protests are ongoing and have been happening and changing the course of our country for the past few months. It sickens me, and it sickens me to see other white people sharing the video of him getting shot. Don't do that, and don't traumatize other people, because we don't need to see that. There are other ways, though, to support him. He is in the hospital. He is fighting for his life, and you can donate to his GoFundMe, and it's very easy to find out there. But what I want to end on is a positive note, that Governor Andrew Cuomo renamed one of the state parks in Brooklyn, Marsha P. Johnson State Park, on what would have been Marsha's 75th birthday yesterday. It is so important that we understand that trans women of color are the people who have lifted the gay movement up and have given us the voices that we thought we always had, but we really didn't until they came to the forefront and fought for us. And Marsha's story has been shared more and more over the past few years, and saying her name over and over and over again definitely did something. So when we talk about history, as we talked about on this episode of Read Down, we need to continue to lift up the names and the voices that gave us the places that we are today. I am so excited that now the first trans person in our country has a state park named after them, and it's so exciting. So congratulations to New Yorkers who get that. That has been my moment here on the Read Down. I'm excited to have had everybody here tonight. I mean, this is just such a phenomenal episode. We also have the link right now to the GoFundMe for Jacob Blake. I'm really glad that we were able to pull that up and put that out there. So please donate to Jacob. I want to thank my co-hosts Alex Mohajer and Ebony Murphy-Root. Tess Rafferty, our special guest. It was so wonderful to have you. Can you please tell us where we can find you so that we can follow you?
You can find me on Twitter at Tess Rafferty. You can go to my website, tessrafferty.com. You could go to those two places to find me.
Perfect. We'd love to have you back someday, so thank you for joining us. This has been a production of the Stonewall Democratic Club. If you are interested in joining the Stonewall Democratic Club and finding out what we do, you can visit us at stonewalldems.org. You can join us for as little as $15 a year, $25. It's low. I can't remember numbers right now, but please check us out, and we look forward to seeing you again next week on The Read Down. Bye.
Bye.